Mishnah Yismai Cotton, Parak Gimel, Chapter 3, Mishna Zion, Mishna 7. Got it? Okay. Ein Kairin, V'lai Cholzin V'ein Mavrin, V'lai Kairin Shalmeis. It's Chalamoid. And somebody has lost a very close relative. So, or a close friend. Somebody passed away. So the Mishnah says, on Chalamoid, that's what we're talking about, on Chalamoid, Ein Karin. One does not tear their garments upon a death. That's just the wording right now. Just translation. Ein Kairin, we do not tear, right? If a person has lost a relative, or truth is that there was a common practice that it could have been a friend, and you would have torn your garment over the loss. But we say on Chalamoid, Ein Kairin, we do not tear the garment. Okay, now what that means is that we do not tear a garment unless we're talking about the mourner. The mourner tears their garment, even on Chalamoid. But someone else who's not a mourner, who maybe otherwise would have torn, they may not tear on Chalamoid. But like Cholzin. Now Cholzin means to bear your shoulder. And what that means is, in Mishnaic times, it was customary to walk with the funeral procession with the shoulder exposed. That's what they did. Besides tearing, they exposed their shoulder. Kind of took their whole arm out of their sleeve, exposing their shoulder and their whole arm. And today, that's not our custom. We don't do that. We tear garments, but we don't expose the shoulder. But in times of the Mishnah, there was this halacha about exposing one's shoulder. Now again, what we're saying here in this Mishnah is that the person who is the mourner in Avel, because it's his close relative that passed away, he would expose his shoulder. But other people who used to do that on other days, who would do that as part of the funeral procession, they would do that. Chalamoid, they may not. The ein mavrin, nor do we serve. Mavrin means the sudas havra, the mourner's meal. The first meal that a novel has after the burial of the deceased is a meal that he does not prepare. It is prepared by others for them. And actually, in the times of the Mishnah, and maybe even now, but I've never really seen it now, but in the times of the Mishnah, the Sudas Havra, it wasn't just the mourners who ate from that meal. Other people also participated. And the point here is that we do not serve the Sudas Havra, ela kreiv shalmeis, other than to the relatives of the deceased. If you're obligated to mourn because it's either one's father, mother, brother, sister, child, or spouse, right? If that's who you're mourning for, then you will tear on Chalamoid, and you will bear your shoulder, and you will partake of the Sudas Havra, of that mourner's meal. But if you're not from the close relatives, even though on other days you would have been participating, the halacha is that you will not. Now, let me read to you a little bit here just to explain just to repeat the explanation. One who has lost a father, mother, brother, sister, son, daughter, or spouse is obligated to mourn. On ordinary days of the year, even more distant relatives or any friends who wish to tear their clothing in mourning may do so. Or on Chalamoid, which is a time of joy, only the relatives who are obligated to mourn are permitted to do this. Similarly, the usual custom was for the mourners to eat their first meal publicly with friends. That's how they used to do it, in the street, outside. They used to go ahead and have that meal with others publicly. On Chalamoid, the mourners eat the meal alone in the privacy of their homes. So that's what it means, ein mavrin. Ein mavrin means for the others typically it would be others participating in this first meal publicly, and we say no, it's only the relatives of the person who passed away, the close relatives, the ones who are obligated to mourn, and it's done privately in their home. Okay, now the next. The ein mavrin ela almita zekufa. And we only join We only join the mourner. We only join the mourner's meal on Chalamoid while we are seated. I'm sorry. The Ein Mavin El Almita Zukufa. We only serve this meal on a bed that is erect, not overturned. Now, what it means is like this. In Mishnaic times, it was customary for those eating with the mourners to eat on overturned beds or couches. Okay? Basically, they turned the couches, in those days, they had these reclining beds, these reclining couches that they ate on. Okay? So whatever it is that they would eat on, when a person is having this Sudas Havra, when a person is having this first meal, they overturn it. Actually, there is a practice that a mourner always even slept on an overturned bed. But here we're talking about the other people who would be participating. So they would be doing this on overturned beds or couches. On Cholamoid, only the mourners themselves eat the first meal on overturned couches, but not those joining them. Okay, so it seems that when we said before that the Sudas Havra is only eaten by the mourners in private, it does seem though that there were other people in private who would join them. That's what it seems. And I guess they would not necessarily be eating from that first meal. They would bring their own food. I don't know exactly, because before we mentioned that they eat alone in the privacy of their home. And now we're saying that those joining them, there's only the mourners eat the first meal in overturned beds, but not those joining them. So apparently there are people joining them, even in private. So that means that they don't join them in the actual Sudas Havra, but they eat with them, again, to be with them. And they who will be joining them and eating with them, they will not be doing that on overturned beds or couches. Only the mourners themselves will. Now, the next halach of the Mishnah is not about Cholamoid. It's about in general. When a person is sitting Shiva, and people would go ahead and bring the food for the mourner's meal. Okay, now, ein malich lebeis ha'evel, one does not bring to the house of the mourner, loy betavla, not in a elegant tray, v'loy ba'is kutla, and not in a silver bowl, v'loy ba'kanain, and not in a fancy basket, ela besalim, but only in plain baskets. That if you're bringing food, meaning there used to be people that would bring food for that first meal. And how would they bring it? So if you are a person who, let's say, could afford it, maybe you'd bring it in a nice tray. But if you're a person who can't afford it, you bring it in the simplest thing, a very simple basket. So the sages instituted that when it comes to bringing the food for that first meal for the mourner, everybody brings it the same way. Everybody brings it in the plainest basket, so as not to embarrass those who can't afford more. Okay, next, back to Allah discussing Cholamoid. We do not say the blessing of the mourners on Cholamoid. We stand in the line, and we comfort, and then we send everybody home. Now, what are we talking about here? What's this Berachas Avelim? So Berachas Avelim is explained in the following way. Now, at the mourner's meal, which was usually eaten in the street, a blessing concluding with, blessed is he who consoles the mourners, Baruch Menachem Avelim, was recited. It was a regular bracha, Hashem's name and everything. The blessing was also repeated during the Shiva when people who had not been present at the original blessing came to offer condolences. Okay, the Mishnah teaches that this blessing was not recited during Cholamoid. It is no longer the custom to recite this blessing even during the rest of the year. We don't make this blessing anymore. But in times of Mishnah, when they did, the point on Cholamoid, they did not say it. Okay, now, Aval Aimdim B'Shura, they stand in a line. Now, after the burial, again, what I explain now is how they did it in the times of the Mishnah. After burial, those present would file past the mourner and offer him condolences. The custom today is for the people to form parallel rows for the mourners to pass between them to receive condolences. Nowadays, after the burial, people make two rows facing each other, and the mourners go through and we console them. The original practice is that the Avel stood there, and everybody made a line to pass by him and to console him. So we say on Chol Hamoed, is that done? Yes. They stand in a row in the row and they comfort. And then we send everybody. We dismiss the public. We send them away. Now, what does that mean? Since the usual practice of reciting the mourner's blessing in the street is not placed on Chol Hamoed, those who assemble do not accompany the mourner home. Rather, after offering their condolences, they are sent home immediately. Meaning, what's happening here is that again, it was done in the street, the comforting. All right, everybody comforted. The mourner then went home. Everybody would accompany him. They'd walk him home. On Chol Hamoed, the point is that after they say their condolences, everybody goes home. He walks home alone. On Chol Hamoed, basically on Chol Hamoed, we minimize the public display of mourning. And therefore, certain things that we would typically do are not going to be done on Chol Hamoed. Okay. Fine. It's Chaim now. It's just something I want to share with you. It says that the comforting meal was typically done in public, right? But on Chol Hamoed, it was done privately. All right. And it seems that there were other people joining them even privately. Again, I don't know. Like I said before, maybe it means they were eating their own food, not from that mourner's meal. Okay, now. Then it said that you only bring the food in a basket. And the Mishnah's wording was, let's make sure here, Ein melichin lebeis ha'evel. Do not take the food to the house of the mourner, not anything fancy or anything plain. What house of the mourner? Didn't they have the first meal in the street? Now we have a beis ha'avel. But in the practice of the Mishnah, it was originally done on the street. And this halacha is supposed to be talking about all the time. So I'm not sure what that means. Again, because the beis ha'evel, bringing something to the house of the mourner, would seemingly be relevant on Chol Hamoed. On Chol Hamoed, when they're doing it in the house, we say when you bring it to the house, only bring it in these things. Now, the same halacha could apply maybe in the street. People would bring it, when they ate in the street, people would bring it. And there too, they have to bring it only in certain ways. But I just was wondering, the wording of the Mishnah is lebeis ha'evel, to the house of the Evel. The house of the Evel, to bring it to his house, would seem to be only on a case of Chol Hamoed. So the Mishnah, I guess, could have been talking about a case of Chol Hamoed, but the halacha could apply any time that food is brought for the mourner.
With Chol Hamoed, they bring it to the sukkah, no?
No. Well, fine, good. That's also beis ha'evel. That's also the house of the Evel. Could have been Pesach, right, too. Chol Hamoed Pesach. All right. We're back to the laws of the Chofetz Chaim. Hilchos Lashon Hara, Klal Aleph, Chapter 1, Sif Ches, Paragraph 8. Isur Zeh Lashon Hara. This prohibition of speaking Lashon Hara, speaking badly about people, that applies whether you actually speak it out, or there was a mechtava, you write it in a letter. You write a juicy piece of news to somebody in a letter. You didn't say it, or you didn't speak Lashon Hara, but you wrote it. And the prohibition applies whether you're speaking it or you're writing it. And there's no difference whether he says the Lashon Hara explicitly, or he does it in a hint. He just kind of hints to it. But you get the hint. He didn't directly say the Lashon Hara, but he hinted it, and people get the message. In all cases, this is included in Lashon Hara. And no more. You speak Lashon Hara about someone, but you say, I did the same thing, right? We both did this wrong thing, okay? So you're including yourself. And even if you talk badly about yourself first, doesn't help to take it away from Lashon Hara because you're including yourself also. The fact you're deriding yourself the same way as your friend doesn't take away from the fact that you're deriding the friend, and therefore it's considered Lashon Hara. Have a wonderful day. A good night.
Thank you, Rabbi.